November 18, 1978, a remote jungle commune in Guyana, South America. Over 900 people, men, women, and children, line up to drink poisoned Flavorade mixed with cyanide. Parents inject poison into their babies' mouths with syringes. Children cry and convulse. Those who resist are held down and forced to drink or shot by armed guards. Within hours, 918 people are dead, sprawled across the compound in grotesque piles. It's the largest loss of American civilian life in a single event until September 11, 2001. This is Jonestown, the horrific end of Jim Jones' People's Temple cult. But how did a charismatic preacher convince hundreds of people to murder their own children? This is the story of Jim Jones and the massacre that gave us the phrase "drinking the Kool-Aid." And the truth is more disturbing than you can imagine. What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Today we're covering one of the darkest chapters in American history, the Jonestown Massacre. How did Jim Jones build his cult? What were his manipulation tactics? And how did it end in mass murder-suicide? Let's break it down. James Warren Jones was born in 1931 in rural Indiana during the Great Depression. His childhood was troubled. His father was a disabled WWI veteran, possibly connected to the KKK. His mother held unconventional beliefs. Young Jim was obsessed with death, religion, and dictators like Hitler and Stalin. Neighbors remembered him holding funeral services for dead animals and studying how leaders controlled masses of people. He was learning early how to manipulate. In 1955, Jones founded the People's Temple in Indianapolis. On the surface, it was a progressive church focused on racial integration and social justice, revolutionary for 1950s Indiana. Jones welcomed black members, preached equality, and ran social programs. He was seen as a civil rights hero. But behind the scenes, Jones staged fake faith healings using planted assistance and sleight of hand. He collected personal information about members, then used it during services to appear psychic. People thought he had divine powers. They didn't know it was a con. Throughout the 1960s, the temple grew. Jones moved to California, eventually to San Francisco, where he became a significant political figure. He delivered votes, built relationships with politicians, and received awards. But inside the temple, his control became absolute. Members had to donate all their money and property. They worked long hours and attended all-night church services. Jones instituted White Nights mass suicide drills where members drank what they thought was poison to prove their loyalty. It was always a test, never real poison. But the message was clear. If Jones ordered them to die, they had to obey. Jones also brutally punished anyone who questioned him. Public humiliation, beatings, electric shocks for children. Sexual abuse became rampant. Jones claimed he needed to have sex with members to liberate them. He confiscated passports, manipulated followers with blackmail and threats, and staged increasingly realistic rehearsals for mass suicide. By the mid-1970s, Jones was addicted to drugs and increasingly paranoid. The media was investigating the temple. Former members were speaking out about abuse and fraud. Jones feared arrest, so he moved the entire operation to South America. He leased land in Guyana and called it Jonestown, promising members a socialist paradise free from American racism. The reality was horrific. Jonestown was hot, humid, infested with insects. Members lived in cramped dormitories with inadequate food and contaminated water. They worked dawn to dusk in brutal heat. Jones confiscated passports. Armed guards patrolled. Escape was nearly impossible. Jonestown became a concentration camp where members worked long hours with minimal sleep and food. Jones' paranoia reached insane levels. He claimed the CIA was plotting against them, that nuclear war was imminent. He broadcast ranting speeches over loudspeakers 24/7. The White Nights intensified. He was preparing them for the end. Back in the US, family members formed a group called Concerned Relatives and pressured the government to investigate. Congressman Leo Ryan of California decided to visit Jonestown personally on November 17, 1978. At first the visit seemed fine, but then several residents asked Ryan for passage out of Guyana. This was Jones' worst nightmare. His control was breaking. As Ryan's group prepared to leave from the nearby airstrip, Jones sent armed guards. Temple members opened fire. Congressman Leo Ryan was shot over 20 times. 4 others were killed. Several were wounded. Back in Jonestown, Jones knew it was over. He called everyone to the pavilion and gave his final speech, recorded on audio tape. He told followers that soldiers would come to torture them, that the only way out was revolutionary suicide. Large vats of flavor aid were mixed with cyanide and sedatives. Jones instructed parents to give poison to their children first. Audio recordings captured children screaming as the poison took effect. Some parents cried as they poisoned their own children. Those who refused were held down and the poison was squirted into their mouths with syringes. Some tried to run and were shot. The pavilion descended into chaos, people convulsing, vomiting, dying in agony. Jones himself was found shot in the head, though whether it was suicide or murder is debated. Within hours, 918 people were dead, including 304 children. The next day, Guyanese troops found a scene of unimaginable horror. Bodies everywhere. Many families died together. At first, reports said 400 dead, but as workers moved bodies, they discovered layers of corpses. People had fallen on top of each other. The final count was 918, the largest loss of American civilian life until 9/11. Not everyone died. Some survivors were in Georgetown on temple business. Others hid in the jungle. A few refused to drink and somehow survived. These survivors faced enormous guilt and trauma. They were victims of intense psychological manipulation. Jones had spent years breaking down their reality, isolating them, and making them dependent on him. How did Jones do it? He used classic cult tactics. He targeted vulnerable people searching for meaning. He isolated them gradually, small requests that escalated to total control. He used sleep deprivation and poor nutrition to break down critical thinking. He created us versus them mentality, making the outside world seem dangerous. He used public humiliation to enforce conformity. And he practiced incrementalism with white knights. By the time the real suicide happened, they'd rehearsed it dozens of times. The Jonestown massacre shocked the world and exposed the dangers of cults and charismatic leaders. The phrase, "drinking the Kool-Aid," entered popular culture, though it actually trivializes the horror. For families of victims, the aftermath was agonizing. Many bodies were too decomposed to identify. The site was eventually abandoned. Today, almost nothing remains except concrete pads and rusted equipment. What can we learn? That cult indoctrination can happen to anyone. That isolation is key to manipulation. That incremental control is more effective than sudden demands. That charisma isn't a qualification for leadership. And that we must speak up when we see abuse of power. The 304 children who died at Jonestown had no choice, no agency. They were murdered by adults who failed to protect them. Their memory must be preserved. Jim Jones started as an idealistic preacher who seemed to want to fight racism and help the poor, but his need for power twisted everything. He exploited idealism, weaponized faith, and manipulated fears. The victims deserve to be remembered as individuals with hopes and dreams that were stolen. And we all have a responsibility to learn from this tragedy so nothing like it ever happens again. So what do you think? How could something like Jonestown happen? What warning signs should we watch for in modern movements? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this deep dive into one of the darkest moments in history affected you, hit that like button, subscribe for more true crime, and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching. And remember, question authority, maintain your critical thinking, and never surrender your judgment to anyone, no matter how charismatic they seem.